You know, I was playing around with the camera. My first camera I got when I was 8. I had like a little, Super 8 camera when I was 10.
Super 8!
And I was making little videos. I'd go to summer school. I was like super cleaner. I was making these little things. But in my family, like immigrant family, that was like hobby stuff.
Of course.
I was going to be a doctor. I went to Europe and I started having these weird dreams. Like they were very, very dark dreams. And I saw a film by Peter Greenaway called A Z and Two Knots, where these images of my dreams were there. I thought I have to go into filmmaking because I want to be able to get my head on the outside. So I called up Sandra. She picked up the phone. She was actually at a Korean spa getting a massage when she picked up the phone.
She goes, I have to take this call.
Yeah, because she'd been thinking about me for some reason. She had just stepped off of Grey's Anatomy after 10 years of being Christina Yang. I had no idea, and she fell in love with the story. It's like pro-peace, pro-girl, pro-art.
Welcome to Season 1 of No Credit, the video podcast that highlights the voices and stories of women and gender diverse innovators in STEM across various backgrounds and eras to ensure that their contributions never get left out of history books. Hi, I'm Zeynep Güler-Tak, Z for short, coming to you from the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. And I'm really excited for today's episode. I get to speak to one of Vancouver's most incredible storytellers whose film is really pushing moving the dial for climate action. But I'm going to keep you hanging for a minute while I tell you a little bit about I know we are very aware that the Indigenous communities have a very important relationship all across Turtle Island with the land. And I would love for you to look up, and I want to get this right. I would love for you to take a look at, I was doing some research, and Coastal First Nations Great Bear Initiative. And what this organization is, it's a collective of 9 BC First Nations communities, and they support climate action, conservation, creating jobs in this space, and really protecting the Great Bear rainforest. I think they're a really important organization to check out. Just look them up and see what they're up to these days. I would highly recommend it. In this episode, we spotlight our planet and the contributions of Eunice Newton Foote, the first scientist to demonstrate the greenhouse effect in 1856. In her lab, she showed how carbon dioxide traps heat, resulting in global warming. Years later, Irish scientist John Tyndall conducted a more complex experiment confirming the same effect, and he was the one who received the credit for this discovery, with even a lunar crater named after him. Newton Foote, despite her pioneering insights, was lost to history until her story was uncovered by an amateur historian years later. All right, so hello everyone. We are here with one of Vancouver's critically acclaimed filmmakers, Marie Fleming, whose recent movie, Can I Get a Witness, which I've seen 3 times so far and will be watching many more times, just premiered at the 2024 Toronto International Film Festival, TIFF, and has been making its rounds around the world right now. We're very excited. It has quite the message when it comes to pushing forward the climate conversation. So that's the connection here that we've made on our No Credit episode. And I am really excited to have you. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Yes. Okay, so we're going to kick it. We're going to get into some deep stuff. And one of the deep things is, what is your favorite snack that you don't share with anybody?
Oh, like secret snack, or that I won't share?
Whoa, there's a secret snack?
No, I just was trying to.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, if there's a secret snack, I want to know about it. But yes, it's a snack that you don't want to share. Maybe you have to share it because you live with people, but you don't really love doing that.
No, I don't share. Right before I go to bed, I have a little piece of 70% cocoa dark chocolate with sea salt, and I sneak it.
You sneak it.
I have it before going to bed.
No
Every night,
sharing.
no sharesies.
I like that a lot. Okay. I'm going to ponder that because the salt part is the exciting part for me. The fact that chocolate and salt just, they're matching made in heaven. Okay, so we're going to ask about twists, turns, detours have shaped your journey. How did we get here?
From the beginning?
Take it from the top.
Okay, so I was born in Okinawa when it was still a United Nations dependency. So it didn't even belong to Japan then.
There you go.
And so the nearest country to give me a birth certificate was Korea. I was only there for a few months. I couldn't even leave because I didn't have an entry visa. And my mom is from Hong Kong. She's, her family, like my great-grandfather was a traveling Chinese vaudevillian acrobat and magician.
Oh.
My grandmother, who I was very close to, was in his act, but we didn't really talk about that because it's kind of the bourgeois ascendancy thing, I guess. So she married a doctor. So it was doctors. That's all I heard about. And my dad is from Australia. Both his parents were school teachers, but we didn't really grow up with his family. But we came to Canada when I was quite young, and my mother's parents came here too. And so I grew up with an extended Chinese family.
Got it.
Even though my grandmother never learned how to speak Chinese. My grandfather was a radiologist, and he was a camera aficionado. And he came from sort of society in Hong Kong.
Right.
So he felt that class kind of transcended race in some ways, you know?
Sure.
And same thing on my grandmother's side. You know, her father had married an Austrian woman in 1908, you know, and he's this like long-haired, braided circus performer. And also, because he was famous and fabulous, that also allowed him to transcend race in ways, you know, and he presented this, you know, East-West show everywhere he went.
Sure.
I didn't learn about any of this till I was in my 30s and doing research about it.
Oh, no way.
But I think in terms of my filmmaking,
yeah.
I've always been interested in people's stories and people's histories.
Sure.
You know, because even myself, I'm mixed race, but a lot of people don't know that, right? Like, and we all have stories, and you have to ask people what their stories are.
Absolutely do.
And my grandfather always had photographic and video equipment around. So, like, I think, you know, I was playing around with the camera. My first camera I got when I was 8. I had like a little, you know, Super 8 camera when I was 10.
Super 8.
You know, and I was making little videos. I would go to summer school. I was like super keener. I was making these little things. But in my family, like immigrant family, that was like hobby stuff.
Of course.
I was going to be a doctor.
Of course.
And unfortunately, I couldn't pass calculus. And that was
kind of essential, isn't it?
Not to be a doctor, but to get into medical school.
Right, that's it.
And
can I ask, what was it about calculus that would just...
No, that's a long story.
Okay, so
and
that's another podcast?
Yeah.
And I like calculus, so I want to know what it was.
I just like, bought a couple of books on calculus.
So you're revisiting that.
Yeah, there's still time. I could still become a pediatrician.
I like that.
Obstetrics, pediatrics is what I was interested in.
I support that.
And then I was going to go into law. And then I took the LSAT sort of primer, you know.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I just failed logic. Like multiple choice logic. Apparently, it's good that I'm not a farmer. It's all in agriculture. Couldn't do it. And so then I took one film class, but I didn't really like the whole film vibe.
Okay.
And I wanted to go into creative writing, but they thought, you know, I should live life before I try to write about it.
Oh my.
And so
So you just keep hitting all these
I'm an English lit honors grad.
Got it.
I sort of a minor in theater.
Okay.
And in some ways, yes, it's true, they're the only people who would take me. But I am a very proud liberal arts grad, and every day of my life, I use it. Okay. I use my critical thinking, I use my writing, I use my appreciation of literature. I know how to do deep dives. So.
And you're going to get back into calculus, and so there you go.
Well, and after, sorry, I'm not finished. So after I got my first degree, I went to Europe and I started having these weird dreams. Like they were very, very dark dreams. And also in the middle of the night, a bird fell on my head in London, not a dream. And also I was obsessed with twins at the time. Don't ask me why. And then I saw a film by Peter Greenaway called A Z and Two Knots, where these images of my dreams were there.
No way.
And there was a bird that came and killed a couple of twins at the beginning of the movie. A swan falls, and then there's these animals that are dead animals that are being animated by maggots inside them. And these were the images in my film, in my head. Yeah, head film. I thought I have to go into filmmaking because I want to be able to get my head on the outside. And I still didn't want to do the film thing. I came back to Vancouver and I saw this Emily Carr graduate show of animation at the Cinematheque. And I saw Martin, oh my goodness. I was going to say Martin Short.
It's on your mind.
Martin Rose, who I just bumped into as I was getting in the car to drive
morning.
here this morning.
So it's all
Martin Rose, he made this film called Study of an Apartment, which is paper animation, and he had a tea bag infused in paper. In my mind, anyway, I remember it differently than when I rewatched the film. But I went, oh my God, this is so beautiful. And then I saw the work of Wendy Tilby, who had just graduated, who does paint on glass. And I was so excited. And they wanted women in animation. There was no animation community in Western Canada. You could only, there was just Emily Carr. They took 10 people a year. There were no jobs, no nothing. It was just crazy people went into animation. And I thought this would be a lovely way to express myself and make films. And all I ever wanted to do is like 3-minute little interstitials like Multiplication Rock or Alphabet Rock, you know, Schoolhouse Rock. Loved those.
So this led to a very significant film. Shall we talk about it?
Sure.
Okay, so tell me about Window Horses.
Oh, Window Horses. Well, that goes back to the beginning too.
If you want to go back to the beginning, let's do that.
Because when I was in art school, I was hit and run over by 2 cars. And I couldn't walk. I was in a wheelchair. I had no strength. And I didn't want to drop out of school. It took me so long to get back into school after my, epiphany. And so she represents all the strength I had. I could just make this little tiny stick character. And I made this little film called So Far So, about my life up to then. So, so Stick Girl has been with me since the 80s. And we've made all these little films together. We even have a poetry app that we made that iOS is like, nobody can see it now. But and then she made a feature film, voiced by Sandra Oh, where she is like also mixed race, but half Chinese, half Persian, Canadian girl who goes to Iran to a poetry festival. And finds her father.
That's it.
Yes, but it's all about endless story about how that film came about. But it was also about understanding people's different cultures, different peoples through their stories.
Okay, so I can't help but get into Sandra Oh because you worked with her. You've worked with her. You've been on a journey with each other for a while, and then this recent film, Can I Get a Witness, is starring Sandra Oh among 2 other incredible co-stars.
Yes, Joel Ullett and Kira Jane.
So if we can switch gears, unless we have a couple more things we want to mention about our journey.
Well, Sandra and I were supposed to make a film back in the early 90s. And that landed up not happening. It was interesting because it was a mother-daughter film, but she was the daughter.
Get out?
Yes.
No!
Yes. And then 30 years later, here she is, mother-daughter film where she's the mother.
She's the mom.
Very different dynamic, very different relationships.
And a very different Sandra Oh.
But when that film didn't happen, she went to the States and became, a household name. And I did not. But we've been trying to find a way to work together, but she was busy. And for Window Horses, I crowdfunded that to start the financing. And I thought, well, I need somebody to amplify my voice. Nobody's gonna give me money. And so I called up Sandra. She picked up the phone. She was actually at a Korean spa getting a massage when she picked up the phone. And
she goes, I have to take this call.
Yeah, because she'd been thinking about me for some reason. And she had just stepped off of Grey's Anatomy after 10 years of being Christina Yang. I had no idea. And she fell in love with the story. It's like pro-peace, pro-girl, pro-art. pro, mixed raciness, because her nieces are that, and she wanted to show that. You don't see that so much you see it more now, live action, but in animation, not so much.
See it, you're right.
So, so she came on as a real advocate and spokesperson for the project. And she was willing to come back on as her whole live action self for Can I Get a Witness?
All right, so let's talk about Can I Get a Witness? Yeah. This one's very close to my heart, Anne-Marie. That's where we met.
Yes.
And I want to talk about this film alone. You're asking audiences to contemplate, what are you willing to sacrifice to save the planet?
Yes.
There's an urgency in that question,
yes.
But the pace of your movie is different. So tell us a little bit about that.
Two things. First, I want to say that my English Lit degree came into this because it was really inspired by Jonathan Swift's A Modest Proposal, where he said, basically, famine in Ireland, why don't you eat your children? You've got a population problem, and this way you can get your protein and, balance that thing out. It caused an incredible ruckus.
Of course.
Because people took him seriously.
Of course.
He was trying to focus on a problem, right? And to get the attention there.
That's it.
And that's what I wanted to do with Can I Get a Witness? Because obviously I have a solution for all the world's problems, and people are supposed to think that I am not serious. But what's happened in the last several years with COVID, with MAID, with overpopulation, with climate, which is now on the front page, not the back page.
Exactly.
Because I've been working on this project for forever ago. There is an incredible urgency. But part of the theme of the film is consumption. We consume too much, including time. And the film is meditation speed, heart rates are down, but also, of course, it's, it explores end of life.
Yes.
And I wanted to show how precious every moment here is.
Right.
So everything that's done is just held on to, because nobody wants to leave.
Yeah.
Because of this beautiful place that we, live in, and how precious it is to us and each other.
And that's all because we get rid of people, or we send them along at the age of 50, right? And so that's the premise.
Yeah.
Do you want to give us like the one-line premise? Because I feel like it's over-practiced now.
No, it's just like I have come up with the solution to all the world's problems, mitigating climate change. We've eradicated global poverty, have true trans-species democracy, and we just had to turn back technology a little bit, and everybody has to leave by 50. And that's supposed to be the punchline. But when you look back historically, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, that was pretty old.
It was.
And in some parts of the world today, that's still life expectancy.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's not far-fetched. It is the fable. It falls under fable rather than dystopian thriller.
It's not dystopian. It's like, here's a utopia that you don't want. So it's supposed to make you think, but I don't want, that sounds so, more like it gives you space to think.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
Gives you space.
I felt the pace. I felt my breathing really settle when I started watching when they're on the bikes, and highly recommend. Please find a way to see this movie. I know it's coming. So please, Can I Get a Witness? But that just, it was like meditation.
What about when Sandra's in the field?
Oh my God, she actually does a whole meditation.
She's just breathing. And if you see it in an audience, if you have that ability to see it in a crowded audience.
Please go to the theaters and see this.
Right? Like, there's not a breath.
There's not a breath.
All you hear is that one breath.
That's it. Oh yes, and this is not a popcorn movie. I tried to eat popcorn and I was like, this is not gonna work. I'm just gonna put this down. It's not a popcorn movie. It's one of those movies where you really have to just listen.
More liquids.
And
liquids.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to switch gears now to I got you to do some homework. We are paralleling in this episode your work with one of the contributions or the lost, erased contributions of Eunice Newton Foote, who was the original person who discovered, scientist who discovered the greenhouse effect. At the time, it was called the greenhouse effect. It's now greenhouse gas effect. A dude came in, another scientist, and he was like, "Oh, I found it. Oh, I found it." And they named a crater after him. This is not an abnormal story. I feel like this is a story we know very well. It doesn't only happen in the STEM fields. It happens a lot. So
yes, she's Eunice Foote Note.
Yes. Foote. Oh, nice.
Nice.
I like
yes,
that.
Thank you.
I like that. Okay, so can you tell us? I threw this homework on you.
Yeah.
How did you feel, or what are your thoughts on this erasure?
I don't think it's unusual, and I don't know if it's, I would even call it erasure. It's like there is no acknowledgement in the first place.
Right. Oh, that's a good point, right?
Yeah.
It's not a, we're going to cover this up.
That's right.
There wasn't
it's not
even
like a revisionist history. It's like there's no history,
That's a great
but
point.
there it is.
Right.
I hate to do, I don't want to talk about gender in this way,
I know.
but to experience, like, lived life as a woman, not for everybody,
Sure.
but a lot of us have been in a situation where you're in a room with people, and
we're just going to say people.
And you have a great idea,
Yes.
and it is ignored,
Right.
and then the person sitting beside you, whoever they may be male, will repeat what you just said, and it will be applauded.
Right.
And it's like, but I just said something. Like, am I like the whisper?
Yeah.
Right? Am I the whisper?
Oh yeah.
Right? So I think we all know that. And I think that that's sort of the microcosm. And then you have this systemic, thing. Like, I mean, I'm sure there are people who know Eunice Foote.
Yeah.
Besides her immediate family. I mean,
but it was discovered. Like there was a historian that discovered her story and started telling her story.
Yeah.
I think the idea is that we need to tell the story consistently.
Yes.
And my thing is, when I look her up and I only find 3 search results,
yes,
there's a problem,
yes.
right? We need to have 10,000 search results. So how do we flood the market?
Yeah.
And I think that's the idea and behind our
podcast, right? And behind a lot of the work that we get to do, because we wouldn't be here without them. Okay, I have a quick question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Technology. You mentioned technology does have a role in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you and I have spent car rides talking about technology and how it's shaping our world and how it's shaping filmmaking. Where are we at right now? How are you feeling about technology? Big bad? Is it big bad, or is it I'm doing this?
Both.
Right.
Obviously.
Right.
The potential is so exciting as a tool for artists, especially.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, my great-grandfather, Longtime Sam, I'm trying to do an animated film about his life now, because he was a vaudevillian.
Yes.
And I'm doing a film like Tappins in the 30s where vaudeville is being displaced by technology, displaced by movies.
Ooh.
And so it's like this is another technological cycle on a completely different scale. And, I'm interested in the arts in particular, but obviously it has huge ramifications.
Sure.
And in the UK, they've got these little robots that deliver they're so cute.
Yeah.
They're these little boxes. Have you seen them?
No.
They take your groceries to your door.
Oh, no, I
And-
don't know.
and
that
they
they're
know
just
how to-
helpful.
And they know how to stop. I don't know how they know how to stop at crossings and when cars are coming and stuff like that.
Oh, they've been programmed.
Yeah,
That's
it's
genius.
genius. There's so many things. I think about my father has Alzheimer's, and so many people, are dying of loneliness. There's so many people warehoused right now.
That's a great way of looking
and
at
how technology, like chat bots for people
who are on
their own.
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah, go to sleep.
amazing.
And apparently you can do it in your voice, record some things in your voice, and your aging mother and maybe she's somewhere else, she can hear you say, okay, it's time for us to go to
some
bed.
comfort.
Some comfort.
Like that is amazing.
I know, it is incredible.
Yes, people will lose jobs.
But that's how our innovation has happened. So
Yeah.
we're gonna have lose jobs and we're gonna gain jobs in other areas. So that's my perspective.
Yeah,
Obviously, on
it's
that.
interesting because we're all trying to figure it out, and there needs to be regulations. And it's funny because we're regulating what we don't even know. By the time they have a regulation, things have gone so much beyond that.
Yeah.
Like I have no answers, but I know that it is here.
It's here.
And so I would like to not be afraid to play with it.
I'm going to end on that.
Okay.
That's a perfect place to end. So this segment, our Up Your IQ segment, is kind of where we get some layman's terms on some of the things that we're curious about. And with Anne-Marie, we're specifically curious about the role of a director in a film, in a feature film. And then maybe we can even talk about an animation, because that's a very unique type of directorial role as well. So first, let's talk about in a film. What does your role look like? What does your day look like? What does your year look like?
Oh, wow. That is so complex. I mean, I write and produce and direct.
Yes.
So I liaise really easily with those different departments.
Yes, you do.
And I do mainly my own work. So, in my non-film life, I give a lot of dinner parties. And I don't want to be reductive in any way, because I think a director is such hard work and takes so much prep, and you have to know everybody's job and know what they can bring to a moment.
Yeah.
And for me, animation is no different than live action. Animators are like working with very slow actors. But they are creating the characters through movement, through that feeling, through that emotion, that physicality. So you have to make sure that, I mean, these are soft skills.
Yeah.
That everybody feels safe, everybody feels welcome, everybody feels valued.
Yeah.
Obviously, that is not possible to do 100% of the time.
No, sure.
There's always issues, because film is people.
Yes.
Soylent Green is people.
Yes.
Film is people, and so your biggest job is to make sure that you've hired a group of people together. They all have their talent. They all have their skill. Is to allow them to do that and to steer the boat, because at every moment there's a million decisions that have to be made. There are things that do not go precisely how you think they are. What will this decision make down the road?
That's it.
And so you just have to make sure that you're still going in the same direction. Every movie is a miracle. Like every movie is a miracle. And a movie that still has the heartbeat of what it started off with is like, it's harder than you think.
Sure, and you're bringing that heartbeat because you're the writer, you're the director, and you also produce. You can see the whole ecosystem too. So that heart is you, right? And so, how do you carry that, and also compartmentalize that? Right? You know what I mean?
I think it's because. And that's why you have to be so careful, or at least I do, like what you spend your time on.
Sure.
Because it's a deep dive, it's a huge commitment, it's a long period of your life.
Right, you're pouring
and you have to keep that passion up. And so it's kind of interesting, though, because no matter how tired you are, then it begins, and then you have all of this energy, even if it's energy to overcome an obstacle, or whether you're just in the flow, which is magic.
It is magic.
And doesn't matter if it's animation or live action. When there's actually synergy between people, there's nothing like that.
No.
And it's hugely buoying.
It is.
And so I don't know. I mean, it's like this interview. There's nothing. I hate interviews. I hate them. And I don't ever know what I'm going to say until I actually hear it out of my mouth.
Yes.
Right. And but then as soon as I I get to talk about ideas that I care about.
Yes.
And like, you know, on a film set is like, no matter how difficult it is like, what a privilege.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, my films are always about ideas. I get what all of these people to help me tell this little story. I better care.
Right.
I better care. Otherwise, why would anybody else care?
Well, Anne-Marie, I was on set for your film, Can I Get a Witness? Your care was extended to the feeling on set of people knowing that they were doing something really big and they were doing great work. People were smiling. And even when it was challenging, they were like, we can get through this. And I was like, this is all the horror stories we hear about Hollywood. It didn't live on your set, or it didn't live in the extension that like how you impacted people's families and their loved ones. Because I'm obviously, my husband was the producer, a line producer on this. And so that was something that I noticed, and you set the tone for that. So that, you know, no pressure, but that's pretty remarkable to have poured everything into that.
I'm pretty chill on set.
Yeah.
You know, you can ask my partner. He doesn't think I'm that chill.
They never do. They never do. We think we're chill,
but I think that it's true. It really is a top-down thing because film is so hierarchical.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, that's the thing that steered me away from it. So it really matters. Like, you can't freak out.
Nope.
Otherwise, everybody's freaking out.
That's it.
You know, and everybody's freaking out.
They are, because they want to do a good job.
Yeah, and they're so talented. And what was such a great pleasure, besides the fact that I do love the film, I love the film. Yeah. But what I love is that so many people involved are so proud of the work that they did.
That's it.
You know, that is so meaningful.
Right. Okay, so then let's switch into storytelling.
Why do we tell stories?
What is that urge?
What is that urge to want to do it?
I don't know, because I know that in my family, for example, and I think a lot of immigrant families, people don't tell stories unless, you know, you're Irish, because a lot of people are trying to get away from things.
Interesting.
You want to leave the bad times behind. We want to look forward.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't want to talk about painful pasts or what people are going through. I love pain. I mean, I really feel that it's important to share. And like I'm just one of those people that it's always talking. I have a million things to say, and I'm interested in other people's stories. And like I said, I think it's partly because I come from such a you know, mixed up peripatetic family.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I'm kind of a sociologist. I want to know why people do what they do.
Right.
I want to know the larger context.
That's it. And you're able to explore that through your work.
Yeah, because it's often mysterious.
Yes.
You know, and there's, you know, it's not cause and effect all the time, but often it kind of is.
Yeah. Is it ever? Emery, I like to say that the movie Can I Get a Witness really pushed the climate conversation forward. It was it was kind of helping the movement. And I think obviously your urgency we talked about, but what kind of research went into, from a climate perspective, what kind of research went into making a movie like this that has such an impact on that conversation?
Well, you know, I don't want to be glib by
Please
saying I did a lot of research.
Please do.
But once again, walking into a world, I mean, I didn't start off as a climate activist. I started off as maybe climate curious in some ways.
That's a great way of putting it.
And so I just started reading everything.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, this isn't, you know, this isn't a polemical film. I'm not proselytizing. You can come into the film with what knowledge you have.
Yep.
And you can go further, or you don't have to. I've got the website canigetaWitness.ca, which has this little climate calculator on. And so, you know, like, this is like just like really baby, like it's baby, right? But I just wanted to have a graphic to show our impact.
Sure.
And so you can go and look at much more interesting stuff on the web.
There's some great stuff.
But it's like, I really do think that as an individual, like people feel helpless, they feel hopeless.
Yeah.
There's like this anticipatory climate grief, you know, that a whole generation has. And it's like, I want people to feel that they have agency. And because there's a lot of us, there's, you know, there's 8 billion of us, there's going to be 10 soon.
Yeah.
Most of us live past 50. And so you think about time, over time, everything that you do every day has an effect. And together, we have a big effect. We're all experiencing climate change right now.
Are we ever? Yeah.
All at the same time.
Yeah.
And so in very different ways. So you don't have to you don't have to say something caused climate change, or you don't have to be political about it. You just have to know that you actually can have some agency.
That's it.
Yeah.
And it's happening. So it's happening.
It's happening.
So what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to switch to learning a bit more about who is Anne-Marie. We're going to ask first about your morning routine. What's a rough morning routine that you rely on to kind of keep you moving?
It's true. Like my whole life, I've basically been self-employed.
Yes.
Right. So I think it's really important to have structure.
Yes.
Otherwise, you get
Otherwise. Yeah. Right.
So right now, like I've got a little, you know, and I'm not a big exerciser.
Right.
Right. So I don't. It's not like I go to the gym or anything like that or play sports. But I get up in the morning. I've had a lot of back and neck injuries, you know, from getting run over and stuff.
Yeah.
So I get up around the same time every morning, sometime between 7 and 8.
Sure.
And have some tea. I get up. I do a little 7-minute stretch and strength program for balance and little lubrication, a little, you know, little isometric, a little thing. Check my emails. Right.
So you get into it. Do you prefer that you don't want to, like, are there days where you're like, I don't want to get into it, I want to do creative stuff first? I want to write, or I want to...
Before checking emails?
Yeah. Do you ever?
No.
No!
And because my partner is like, unfortunately, super news junkie.
Yeah.
This is so bad. I often start my day with news now.
Oh, see.
I don't listen to it, and I don't watch it.
Right.
But I do
But
scroll
I
I scroll it.
Doom scroll.
Yes.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one.
But at night, I like to watch Graham Norton snippets.
Yeah.
Or comedy things.
Graham Norton's the best.
I have to watch a little bit of comedy before I go to sleep.
I think we should all watch comedy.
With my
before.
chocolate.
Yeah, with your chocolate.
Yeah.
Tied it back to the chocolate.
And you know what happens if I watch those things? Like if I laugh before I go into bed, I don't get nightmares.
Right. So you know the nights where you didn't laugh, where you didn't have that chocolate.
That's right.
You're going to get the nightmares.
Chocolate.
This is a routine.
True.
This is a routine.
True.
Why do you love what you do?
Like I'm lucky that I have something that usually gets me up in the morning and that I want to do. I'm totally blessed, and I'm also blessed that I love my films. You know,
We love your films.
you know, we're all critical. We're all very self-critical, but I like what I've made, and I love that I still get to make it.
Are you kidding? We love that you still get to make it. We want you to keep going. All right, so Anne-Marie, I feel like you're going to be even more busy than you were before, but the fact that you made time for our podcast, I really appreciate it. We learned a lot. I learned a lot more about filmmaking from one of Vancouver's and one of Canada's best filmmakers. So I appreciate you pouring in all the energy that you do to the films, but also into just sharing this with us, even when you don't love interviews. So I
know. Thank you, Zainab, and thank you for oh my God, your passion, your energy.
I was persistent, wasn't I?
And your support. Really appreciate it.
Of course, of course. We want to see more of these films. We want you to keep doing what you're doing. You're pushing the conversations forward. You're an ideas person, so the more ideas that are going to push us forward are going to make us better.
And it's an action, right?
It is an action.
It's an action, and so I'm aware, but this film is my action.
Okay, so take action, please. If you're going to take something away from today's episode, please take action. You have the ability to do it. You have the responsibility. It's for all of us, and we can make a difference. So thank you so much. And thanks for joining us for season 1 of No Credit. Thanks for tuning in to season 1 of No Credit. We've loved having you join us to learn from insights and dive into the worlds of some of the most incredible people innovating here in the city of Vancouver, British Columbia. We've even gone to the Toronto International Film Festival to cover some of the storytellers and people pushing us forward in science and technology. So stay tuned to the next season of No Credit.
I mean, so often science is something that we're like, oh, it's you either took it in school or you didn't. You know, you either understand it or you don't. But when it merges with the humanities, then we're able to contemplate some issues that we actually need to contemplate.
You said the ultimate goal was to turn everyone into a version of Leonardo da Vinci, and I'm getting goosebumps right now. So can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, it's funny, you know, I don't think he made a distinction, and the distinction is relatively recent. The word scientist wasn't invented until the 19th century. And so we're, in a way, trying to bring things back together. And when everyone can see the world whole, the way a Leonardo saw it, then my job is finished, at least, you know, and then I can do something else.
I mean, the film is called Push the Button, and the button is about whether to shut it down or not to shut it down.
My film is called Lucid, and it's about a psychotherapist who comes up with a revolutionary approach to trauma, treating people with trauma.
Forsa is a semi-historical dramedy about the first female professor, and it's also about, in her relentless pursuit for success, she sort of realizes she's become a totally different person than how she started out.
My project is called Liberation. It's eco-thriller that follows a vegan scientist and her family as they're caught up in a covert war between the Animal Liberation Front and a powerful meat corporation.
Why do you love the work that you get to do?
Because I love working with people who have creative ways to explain what's happening in the world.